In the past few videos I've done, I have mentioned about taking a hiatus from Nintendo between 2004 to 2010, 2011, and ended up becoming a Sony guy. In this video, I will cover why I left Nintendo in 2004 and became a Sony guy, and also why I left Sony in 2013 and went back to becoming a full-fledged Nintendo guy once again, all in this one video. This actually dated well before 2004. In fact, when I first started playing video games in 2000, the first console I ever played was the PlayStation 1, and the first two video games I've ever played were on the PlayStation 1, which happens to be Spyro the Dragon and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1. So you might as well say that I'm more of a Sony guy at the start. But after I started playing video games and all that, I actually shifted towards Nintendo. For the better part of 4 years, I was playing both Sony and Nintendo games. Although I haven't really gotten into the Xbox because the Xbox wasn't really my thing. Then in 2004, the year that changed everything. Just when I started to get a lot of interest towards Nintendo and Pokemon and all that, at a point that I showed my interest everywhere I went, like school and everything. That's what caused me to get bullied in school because of my interests and everything. And young Tacky got so depressed from being bullied for liking Pokemon and Nintendo, I abandoned Pokemon, I abandoned Nintendo entirely. And I ended up switching to become a Sony guy. Over the next 6.5 years, all the way up to the end of 2010, I was only a Sony guy that played on the PlayStation, especially the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3. Then, between the years of 2011 to 2013, I went back to being both a Sony guy and a Nintendo guy, which I'll get to later on in this video. Like I said, the reason behind the switch to PlayStation instead of the Xbox is that I'm not really interested in Xbox contents. I was more in PlayStation. My brother had an Xbox, and you know sibling rivalries. He had an Xbox, meant I was getting a PlayStation. And thanks to a couple of friends of mine way back when, I played the PlayStation on their console. I haven't owned a PlayStation 2 at that point. But the Christmas of 2004, I got the PS2 for Christmas. And the whole sibling rivalry began between me and my brother, between his Xbox and my PlayStation. He got the Xbox 360 in 2006, and I got the PlayStation 3 in 2007. You gotta love sibling rivalries. The favorite thing I loved playing during my PlayStation era was the Grand Theft Auto franchise, which I still play up to this day on Steam, but I remember Christmas Day 2008, when me and my brother exchanged game gifts. I had to buy him an Xbox 360 game, and he had to buy me a PlayStation 3 game. I got him Madden 09, and he got me Grand Theft Auto 4. It's not just GTA that I played during this era. I played other PS2 and PS3 games. Some of the PlayStation games I played during this time were Little Big Planet, Ratchet and Clank, and God of War. Those games were pretty fun. I could say that. That's one of the reasons why I decided to join Team PlayStation. Between that and not really being interested in Xbox, and plus I have been playing the PlayStation in the past, so there's that. But 6 years after leaving Nintendo and becoming a Sony guy, during the summer of 2010, I started finding a brand new outlook in life by joining a couple of online communities such as DeviantArt and Newgrounds. Although my interest in PlayStation was still at an all-time high at this time, but I started to regain interest in Nintendo once again, just like I did before 2004, when I was both a Sony guy and a Nintendo guy at the same time. And near the end of 2010, I got a Nintendo DS, which I loved. However, I'm still highly loyal to Sony, even despite getting a Nintendo DS. But that all started to change when 2011 rolled in. Some unfortunate things happened to the DS I owned, which I got a couple months prior. It happened to got stolen. And I had to buy myself a new Nintendo DS. And thanks to all the online communities out there, like DeviantArt and Newgrounds, after 7 years of abandoning the franchise, it was time to return to Pokemon again. So on March 6, 2011, I returned to Pokemon. which was also the start of Generation 5. Since I needed a new Nintendo DS, I ended up getting a special edition Pokemon Black Nintendo DSi that came out on March 6, 2011, which was bundled with Pokemon Black. And I ended up getting all that, which I still own to this day. This started a whole dispute between being a Sony guy and Nintendo guy, which lasted another 2.5 years to the end of 2013, when they did the entire Game of the Year thing. However, before that, my interest in Sony was already on a downward spiral during the 2.5 years, hence I knew it was a matter of time before I'm no longer interested in PlayStation and Sony. The final nail in the coffin of being a Sony guy came when they announced the Game of the Year for 2013 and they gave it to The Last of Us instead of Grand Theft Auto 5, because I wasn't interested in The Last of Us and I was highly interested in Grand Theft Auto. Irritated after what Sony had become, I left the fan base, I left Sony, I left PlayStation, and I just solely focused on Nintendo and being a Nintendo guy. It was a good 9-year run for being a Sony guy. Later on down the line, at the beginning of 2015, I sold 97% of the PlayStation games I own, other than just a couple of PS2 games and the PS2 console, when I traded in all for a Nintendo Wii U, which I later traded in for Nintendo Switch in 2018. Even though I'm not a Sony guy anymore, I still play a few PS1 and PS2 games even to this day. If they're not like on Steam or other platforms, I still have the PS2 that I got back in Christmas of 2004. But honestly, I don't really play it on that much anymore. I used to way back when, but not really anymore. And get this, I once owned a total of 122 PS2 games, but now it's all the way down to 6 PS2 games. These 6 games are the reason I have not sold the PS2 yet, because these 6 games aren't available on Steam or any other platforms other than the PS2. Although they were available on other consoles at the time, like the GameCube and the original Xbox, but I already have them on the PS2, so I'm not really bothered rebuying them. Now, will I ever return to becoming a Sony guy again? Really, that's really hard to tell, because I never thought I would be a Nintendo guy again back then. Then 6.5 years later, I would return to Nintendo again. Then after the mess with Sony 3 years later, I'm just solely a Nintendo guy now. So, who knows? Maybe sometime down in the future, I might become a Sony guy again. And perhaps this video will age well, and I will become a Sony guy again. There's always a saying, never say never. It might not be right now, still you never know. Plus, with the announcement of Grand Theft Auto 6 on the horizon, maybe I might come back to PlayStation again, but it's going to be one of those wait and see kind of things. Anyways, I wanted to make this video just to pinpoint of why I took a hiatus from Nintendo and focus more on Sony's PlayStation and all that. Now, what would have happened if things were a little different? Things could be slightly different if I was never bullied in 2004 for liking Nintendo or Pokemon and abandoned those franchises and focus on Sony. And would things be different today if Sony have given the 2013 Game of the Year award to Grand Theft Auto 5 instead of The Last of Us? More than likely not, because before the end of 2013, I already had a declining interest in Sony. So the 2013's Game of the Year was kind of, well, you can say, it kind of speeded up the process of me losing interest in Sony and PlayStation entirely. Anyways, it's been your buddy Tacan here. Subscribe, ding lamp, everything. Peace out, and thanks for watching. Peace.